Which way?
This way.
Yeah? Okay. ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयामदेवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुभागुंसस्तनूभिः न्यसेमदेवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ
शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु
सह वीर्यं करवावहै
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः एतस्माज्जायते प्राणः
एतस्माज्जायते प्राणः
not jayete jayate yeah jayete means it will be two pranas no etasmajjayate pranah
एतस्माज्जायते प्राणः
manas sarvendriyani cha
मनः सर्वेन्द्रियाणि च
खम्बायुर्ज्योतिरापः
खम्बायुर्ज्योतिरापः
पृथिवी विश्वस्य धारिणी
पृथिवी विश्वस्य धारिणी
So, etasmat. Now, the thing is this, that the first two verses, as we said, were the pratigna. Pratigna means a thesis, like it was talked about in a concise form. The two lakshanas of this Purusha. Lakshanas means definitions. The definition with regard to the essential nature of the Purusha, that is always the same. That is what is called reality. That is what is called akshara. Not to be confused with what? The Purusha with regard to the universe, which is the changing, so to speak, definition. So those two definitions are to be kept, apart from one another. That's why they have two different verses given to them, because the mix-up is the problem. That is samsara. So the ability to be able to see the essential nature and not let it get mixed up in the non-essential nature, that is the whole thing, even though it is apparently mixed up. That apparently mixed up, you are able to see through that apparent reality. See means understand. Nobody is trying to look at the Purusha. What kind of binoculars? So that is the whole point. And so the essential nature was given in the second mantra, which we finished yesterday. The first one being, which one? Which was the first one? Very good. So just like the sparkling stuff, all the sparks coming out of the fire. And the Shruti goes along with what is first evident. What is first evident is the universe. Because the people who are studying are, not one with Satchidananda, correct? They have not resolved into it and are non-differentiated. No. The people who are studying are differentiated individuals with their own body, mind, sense complex, with their own issues, with their own problems, which is why they are studying. So, the first thing that they encounter is the universe. So, therefore, the Purusha is, the universe is nothing but the Purusha alone, just like the sparks are nothing but the fire alone. Sarupaha. So this was pointed out so that one can start looking at the universe differently. The universe now has a halo around it. Like this new photo this Hubble has released. Very nice photo. Yeah, Hubble is celebrated its 25th birthday recently, and on that occasion, belted out one photo from what is that? It's called the Deep Space. Yeah, Deep Space Telescope. That is the definition of Hubble. So then, and all this, colors and stars, it's just wonderful. Very nice. In fact, it's not just a photo, it's a little video, 10-second video. Very nice. So, like this, the Purusha, when you encounter it, the Jagat is very much there. You cannot dismiss the Jagat. But at the same time, when you try to look at the Purusha, you cannot look at the Purusha through any telescope. It is you. That is the whole thing. Because in the beginning you say, oh my God, even when you look at these NASA pictures, you say, oh my God. And that is changed to, oh me, God. Yeah, that is the whole thing. That my becomes aham. And so therefore these two things are talked about in Sankshepa, in a short, like almost like a sutra form. Sankshepa means brief. Very brief. And in this brevity, of course, it's not brief for us because we have to, Upanishad, from the standpoint of the Upanishad, it is brief. Because for Upanishad, everything is brief, And because it is so brief, we have to spend extra time because there are so many things unsaid, So that takes care of the brevity. But then, now, verse 3 onwards, the one we chanted, this is going to actually develop it not in a linear fashion. What would one expect after this? After the first two things, the fire coming out, the sparks coming out of the fire and itself being amurta, meaning nirvikalpa, without any modifications, without any form, itself is that consciousness which is Purusha, which is you. That was talked about. Then one would think that, that we would then go on a listing spree. You have a shopping list, you have a reminder list, you have a to-do list, and you have all the things that came out of Brahman list. Yeah. Sometimes it does that. Like in the Purusha Sukta, we find that. then the question is asked, Katidha Vyakalpayan, how many forms did this Purusha take? And then it answers its own question. Then it asks another, Mukham Kimasya Kau Bahu, what are its feet, what are its face, what are its mouth, what is its mouth? And then it answers its own question, saying that the sun and the moon and all these things. And it's a whole listing of all the things that came out of Brahman. Can you ever sit down and list all the things that came out of Brahman? No. Because Brahman being infinite, the universe is also what? Yeah, without an end, without a beginning, it's just there, it's a cycle. So of course it is infinite, you're not going to be able to sit and list everything. And that is not the purport of the Upanishads, even though we'll find such a list, going down here. But it's not presented in a linear way. It's not presented, okay, let's take groups of things, all these sixpeds, octopeds and bipeds, all these, that's not how it goes. It's not categorized. It is, at best I would say it is neither random nor categorized. It's just an interesting array of things that are talked about. But then the array is talked about always in relation to understanding and keeping in view the essential nature of the Purusha, which is without form and nothing has come out of it, and nothing needs to come out of it, it is itself alone. So therefore it is not a linear presentation, there is a lot of back and forth. And the Purusha now, first it was talked about from an abstract standpoint, which is the fire and the sparks. Fire and sparks. Now the fire is given, the Purusha was the fire earlier. Then the fire had a name, Purusha, who has no attributes. Then the same Purusha with attributes is described as Bhagavan, as Ishvara. That also is there. So this makes for a very full chapter, lot of things going on. And so therefore if one is not understanding the connections, it is not possible to move forward. So one has to be careful of understanding the connections. And so what are the connections here now? So etasmat, tasmat means what? From that. Etasmat means what?
From this.
Now that became this. Because last one was a Mahavakya. Therefore the that has already been made into this. So that, and also it was just yesterday, so we can say etasmat. even in terms of the time, it was not remote. Correct? So etasmat, from this very Purusha about who we studied yesterday, the one who is Divya, of the nature of the light of consciousness, who is without form, Amurtaha, who is outside and inside, spaceless, timeless, who is, not subject to birth, age, etc., who doesn't have prana, who doesn't have a mind to talk of, and who is free of all modifications and all tainting of any of these, body, mind, sense complex, and who is higher than even the modification that needs to happen for the universe to come into being. So that same Purusha, which is this Purusha that we just finished talking about, etasmat, from this Purusha, jayate prana. The prana is born. Remember the big discussion on prana? Yeah. So etasmat prana jayate, very simple Sanskrit here. Jayate is born. What is born? Prana. Prana is the life force. The life force is also born from this Purusha. The life force is not pre-existing the Purusha, we saw that. The Purusha doesn't need the life force to be either sentient or, limitless. So, etasmat jayate pranaha. And then after prana what comes? Manaha. And in some cases, buddhi. So, and sarvendriyani cha. All the indriyas are there. Buddhi, which is what? The thinking capacity, the intellect, the decisive capacity. Manaha, just the surface level of the mind. Sometimes wishy, sometimes washy. Yeah. Wibbly wobbly, wishy washy. This is the mind. And then the mind is, gains a certain paripakvata. Paripakvata means it ripens into buddhi. It ripens into buddhi, and then all the sense organs which the buddhi supposedly and the mind supposedly together operate, but usually they do a number on the buddhi and the mind. So these sense organs and the various vishayaha cha, and also the objects. Whenever you say sense organs, the sense objects have to come into existence, because otherwise what will the eyes keep doing? What will they look at? They will be bored. And the ears will be bored. No gossip is coming, nothing chatpata. Chatpata means spicy. Nothing spicy is happening. Everything, all the tongue, it will just stick to the roof of the mouth because it has nothing to taste. So therefore, when the sense organs are there, the sense objects also have to be there. Otherwise, what's the purpose? Nothing in this universe is without, purpose. Everything in this universe has a purpose. So if the sense organs are there, the sense objects are not far behind. So therefore, all this, manaha sarvendriyani cha, all these have come out. Now, but where did the prana come from? Where did the mind come from? These are all the Sukshma world. What is Sukshma? Subtle world. It's very interesting because this is not the usual trajectory of, we talk of the gross 5 elements and then they go, first we talk of the subtle 5 elements and then they undergo a grossification, all these things, panchikarana, all these things, that's how it is usually presented. Here, that's why I said it's not a linear thing. It goes with the topic at hand, because last time what was said, apranaha amanaha, So apranaha, without prana and without mind, this Purusha is all knowledge and all sentience. From this alone the mind and the prana have come, so it picks up where it left off. From this alone the mind and the prana have come, and then what? And of course, you have to grudgingly say buddhi and and the indriyani, all the indriyas have come. Everything has come from this alone. Then the question comes, where did all these things, where are their sources? Then we have to go to where? Where did the mind come from? Yeah, what is the origin of the mind? Go back to Tattva Bodha. Where did the mind come from? Where did the buddhi come from? Where is the ahankara coming from? Where is the prana coming from? All the subtle elements. Yeah, we can't forget Tattva Bodha after coming to Bhashya. Yes, you have to remember that. Yeah, buddhi has to come first. So you can't forget this. And it's very easy. Why is it so easy? Because where did the gross mind come from? Subtle mind. Where did the subtle mind come from? Subtle elements. This is just like those elephant jokes. How do you put a, what was that? Yeah. How do you tranquilize a blue elephant? No. You tranquilize a blue elephant by shooting it with a blue elephant dart. Tranquilizer dart. Then how do you tranquilize a grey elephant? No. No, no, there is no such thing as a grey elephant dart. You paint it blue and then you tranquilize it with a blue elephant tranquilizer dart. Because maybe it needs some medical procedure, so you have to tranquilize it. This is just like the elephant jokes. It's very easy. How did the elephant get up a tree? How did the elephant get up a tree? Yeah, it sat on an acorn and waited for it to grow. Then how did it get down once it was there? It waited for September, for the fall to come, and slowly it sailed down a leaf. So this is like that. Where did the subtle elements come from? From the gross elements. Where did the subtle mind come from? From the subtle elements. So where did the subtle mind come from? Subtle elements. This is what you have to remember. Just like it's very easy. Just like those elephant jokes. And so like this. So the subtle mind, the mind, etc., everything has come from the 5 elements. And when you talk of the subtle body, obviously it has come from the subtle elements, just like the blue elephant. Yeah, so, it has come from the subtle elements. So then the subtle elements are then listed in order. Very subtly they are listed. Come. What is come? Come. Come is space. Come. Come means space. Then after come, what comes is Vayuhu. Vayuhu is what? Air. And then Jyotihi, fire, not light here, fire. Then Apaha, from fire water has come. We are all talking of subtle elements now. And then what? Prithivi. And the Prithivi has been deified here with a special mention. Vishvasya Dharini. It's a very nice, subtle, there is a pun there. A lot of pun, there's a little pun which can go unnoticed, so I want to mention it. And what is the pun? Vishwa here means the earth, the whole Jagat. Correct? So Dharini, the first meaning is the obvious meaning. This earth, she who is the bearer of the whole Jagat. So earth doesn't mean the planet Earth. Earth here means what? The anything that sustains this whole universe. So it includes all other earth-like surfaces wherever there is life, starting with bacteria, etc. So that is the obvious meaning. Prithvi Vishvasya Dharini. Vishwa here in a different context has a very technical meaning. What is that? What is the technical meaning? Vishwa Virat. Who is this Vishwa? The individual in the waking state is called Vishwa. And here it's a direct tribute to Prithvi, who is bearing this idiot, called the Jiva. The one who is behaving without understanding the importance of Bhumi. The one who is abusing the very earth that she is standing on. This Jiva, who is, this Jiva is being addressed here. Hey Vishwa, the one that is carrying you is this Prithvi. That is how it is being addressed here. So all the subtle elements are pointed out. Now, there is a particular order. What is the order? You go, even when talking about the subtle elements, you go from the subtlest to the grossest. That is the order. So space is the subtlest. Subtlest in relation to what? Subtlest in relation to what?
To air.
No, not in relation to air. Forget the air. If you just take space by itself, it is subtlest from which standpoint?
Whole perfectly. Like
No, it's all connected to you. From your own standpoint, it is subtle. Why? Because you are unable to objectify it. That's how we call it subtle. The subtle elements gain their subtlety because you here are the Vishwa, the waker, who is trying to infer space, who is trying to objectify space and is unable to do so except by sound. That's just one particular organ, sense organ, is able to objectify space. That's why it is called subtle here, the subtle elements. The subtlest from the standpoint of being the most difficult for me, the individual, to objectify. See, it all comes back to you. It's wonderful. So it's not from some, standpoint that you cannot, that is out of your reach. It's all about you alone. You. And you can say Vedanta is all about me. So space is difficult. Space is understood, that you understand there is space when you shout and a certain hollowness, you hear. Some hollowness you hear, then you say, okay, there is space. Because if there is no space, your sound doesn't carry in the same way. So the sound is the one that objectifies space. Only through one sense organ you can objectify space. That's why it is called the subtlest. From the standpoint of you as the knower, space is the subtlest. That subtle definition is not from some other, strange standpoint. It's all putting you in the center of as the actor, as the agent, as the only thing that is worth reckoning, because you are the only knower. Space cannot exist without being known. You are the only knower of space. There is no other knower of space. Space cannot know itself. Why? Inert. Yeah. No, but what about other people? Well, all of them are you. There is only one knower. There may be many jivas, but the knower is one and the same. So from the standpoint of you as the knower, space gains the epithet of being the subtlest of the elements. Why? Because you are unable to know it except in one way alone. So that is space. Then somehow miraculously, space gives birth to air. From space, from the subtle space, comes what? Subtle air. Think of the elephant joke, huh? Yeah, that's how we have to see. Blue elephant, yeah. So, so from the subtle space, what comes? Gross air cannot come. Subtle air will come. And air is less subtle because you can objectify it in two ways with the help of two sense organs. What are they? Eyes and nose. No. Just checking. So, touch. See what you feel? Especially you should wet your hands and go like this. And what that which you feel is called air. We must say that this is a very thorough class. So, this is what he said, KG material, kindergarten. This is Vedantic kindergarten. Okay. So then what is the other element? What is the other sense organ that objectifies the air? Yeah, because the sound does anuvritti, it carries over. You have to remember that. Yeah. So the sound was already understood, right? So sound carries over. Because it's not that suddenly you can only touch air but you cannot hear it. That hearing has come from earlier. This is how beautiful the whole thing is. Then the air, what does it do? The subtle air gives birth to what kind of fire? Subtle fire. Subtle element of fire comes from the subtle element of air. And the fire has attributes that are objectifiable by 3 sense organs. So we have already done touch and sound. Don't keep repeating it. What's the new one? Sight. You can see the fire. Correct? Yeah. So that is its special signature. The special signature of space is sound. The special signature of air is touch. So that they go together. And I'll tell you why in a little bit. And the special signature of fire is that it is connected to sight. Sight. And then what? Strangely, the subtle fire gives birth to subtle water. The subtle element of fire, from that the subtle waters come, because we don't have a singular for water. Apaha, plural. Yeah. Pancha apaha, Punjab. Yeah, 5 rivers. Very nice. Pancha apaha, 5 sources of water are there. So that is what. So apaha, kham vayuhu jyotihi apaha. So what is the distinctive sense organ that delineates or is associated with water? Taste. Although water is tasteless, but that is the taste, because that becomes a basis for all other tastes. Huh? That is the adhisthana for all tastes, absolutely. Because you see, even before, like, if you are a professional taster, sometimes you have to have this kind of a job. In Assam, I knew one man, and unfortunately he was wired all the time because he was a tea taster. He was a tea taster in one of the tea plantations near Assam. And he was just wired, and even though they don't swallow it, they swirl it it's all a professional job. You have to swirl it around in a certain way to find out the depth, the taste, the aroma, all these things, and then you spit it out. But then years of doing it, even the gums, they take in the caffeine. And even that much, like years of doing it and so many sips they take and spit it out, he was always caffeinated. Correct? So the taste, so the point is, so I said, how do you know? Like you let's say you have the Darjeeling first cut tea, and then you are given some, basic desi chai. Desi chai means, where all the grounds that are, all the first cut, second cut, third cut is over, then all you have is tea dust. They mix some kind of edible glue and it just becomes little, things that you make regular tea with, which is the cheapest variety. So I said, how do you distinguish? So in between, I have to cleanse the palate with water. That is what. So that is, you go back to the adhisthana, you cleanse the palate with water, then it's ready to delineate and discern the subtle tastes. Yeah. So then you have, from subtle fire came subtle water, and then it is connected to what? The taste. Yeah. And from the subtle water, what came? Subtle earth. This you cannot go wrong, because only one is left. Thank God. One answer at least I can get right, because no other elements are left now. Only earth is left, Mother Earth. Vishvasya Dharini, the bearer of this fellow who is trying to understand this subtlety. The bearer of this, no good fellow who is not appreciating what is upholding him, her, So Prithvi Vishvasya Dharini, and the subtle earth, what other sense organ is left? This also we cannot get wrong. Yeah. What other sense organ is left? Smell. Water has a bad smell sometimes. No, but the water smell is because of the molecules in the earth. Yeah. Fire has wooden smell, that wood is smoky smell, that is also because of the earth. So the earth alone is called Gandhavati Prithvi, the fragrant earth. That's what our ancestors called her. Gandhavati Prithvi. When it rains after a long time, that wonderful, that earthen smell, that is what it is. So that is the the adhisthana of all smells. So therefore you see that this is very, Purusha centric. Etasmat you can say, because that tasmat has already become etasmat, because we just studied it in the last verse, last mantra, but it is also etasmat because all this mind, buddhi, everything is being defined as arising from the subtle five elements, which are again being defined with the help of me and my objectifying each and every one of them. Think about this. Without you, none of this can happen. You are it. You are the only thing that is significant. And even though we say the earth is holding you, what is it holding? Your body, mind, sense complex. But here you are holding the earth in terms of objectifying it. So all the five elements, everything, the five elements is not a small thing, because out of that everything has come. And the subtle five elements are responsible for the gross five elements. They undergo a kind of an interesting mixture of grossification. So the subtle, air, and what's the difference between the subtle air and the gross air? Everybody wished I did not go there. But but since we have touched on Tattva Bodha, we should finish the discussion. Yeah. So how is the gross air formed? Yeah. One fourth, yeah, 1/8. Yeah, of the other four elements, which is half, and the other half subtle air. Makes it what? Gross air. Yeah, makes it grossified. And should we go down the list and do this for each and every one of them? No, thank you. Okay, good decision. And then, so what we have to see in this mantra is the centrality of this Purusha. That is the other reason. I told you this has a lot of puns. That's the other reason it is used the word etasmat, because that which qualifies etasmat is Purushat. Etasmat Purushat. From this Purusha alone, everything has arisen. So you start looking at yourself differently. And you start looking at the Mahavakya very seriously. So this Purusha is that Purusha, but even if one is not able to fathom, that the five elements, subtle and gross, have arisen from me, even if you are able to just say it has arisen from that formless, nameless, Purusha alone, which is the truth of me, at least that much you can be, thinking about. Very nice. And then what? Etasmat. And then the other thing here is that these five elements, prana and manaha, these five elements are brought in only to discuss prana, mana, buddhi and indriyas. Again bringing it back to you. So even though the individual jiva is endowed with all these, they are non-separate from the Purusha, and in fact they have been blessed by the Purusha. And it is because of the existence of the Purusha they are able to exist. Who is this Purusha? Me. That's me in form of that sentient consciousness without whom nothing can exist. Then of course we get down to the basics of what kind of an existence is this. And Adi Shankara pens a bhashya for this particular mantra. Not pens, stencils, because in those days they had to use a particular stencil. Very interesting, I have seen it, It's got a metal thing and a wooden tip, and you kind of hold it like that. It's got two little rings to put your finger in, and each one has to be carved. It's not very ergonomic, and you are writing on a leaf, and then you have to let that dry. So you're writing in a certain way, you have to put a certain pressure. You try writing you try writing and then after that you need a chiropractor for this hand. And think of so many bhashyas written by Adi Shankara. Amazing. How did he write? We don't know. Daivi Shakti, some Shakti is there. Goddess Shakti. So Shankaracharya, has no. That's why he learned to write in a very precise way. That was perhaps one of the reasons and the training in those times. Because how long are you going to hold it like this? And then he has no patience for a number of things. And in this, he just dismisses the whole universe, even though the Upanishad is trying to establish the universe by saying from this the mind and the prana have come, and from this alone everything has come. Even though the universe is attempting to say that, Adi Shankara says that is not the purport of this mantra. Easily you can start thinking that this is the cosmology of creation. Indeed it is. It would not be wrong to think that this is the cosmology of creation, because this indeed is the cosmology of creation insofar as we have a cosmology. We are not interested in cosmology, but we have it just for cosmetic purposes. We are not interested in this cosmology business at all, because the point is to show that you are everything. So why should be interested in what came first, what came second, and whether the elephants came before the horses and were they blue or not? We are not interested in that. But we do talk about it so that one understands, because people have fixations. People say prana came, but what about my mind? Elephant came, but what about Ashwa, horse? So therefore, for such minds, we have to, the Upanishad is constrained to say that everything, yes, including your horses, including your horses, have come from the Purusha alone. The Upanishad is constrained to say that, and she does. But the purport, even though generally speaking, we do have a certain cosmology just to have a certain order of how everything has come, which is not opposed to science, but we are not trying to be scientific either. Even though we have this cosmology, and even though here it looks like this is the stirrings or the beginnings of this cosmology coming out, and it won't be wrong to take it that way, Adi Shankara says that this mantra should be seen in connection to the previous verse. Because the previous verse had us wondering how this Purusha can be sentient, alive, all pervasive without the life force, without the mind. How can something be all knowledge without the mind? And how can something be all pervasive and sentient without the life force? So here the life force and the mind, which were negated in the last mantra, are talked about as an output of the Purusha, as originating from the Purusha alone, so that we don't go back to that orientation thinking that the Purusha, Bhagavan here, is having what? A mind and prana. That is what Adi Shankara says. Very interesting. Let us encounter the Bhashya. Okay, now where are we? एतस्मादेव पुरुषात् नाम रूप बीज उपाधिलक्षितात् जायते उत्पद्यते अविद्या विषय विकारभूतः नामधेयः अनृतात्मकः प्राणः वाचारम्भणं विकारो नामधेयम् अनृतम् इति श्रुत्यन्तरात्. This is called a Big Bang Bhashya, BBB, because there is no introduction, nothing. He immediately launches into his reason for this bhashya, and he says that before you start getting all cozy and complacent, before you brew yourself a nice drink to go along with this mantra, oh how lovely, wonderful, space has come and then time has come, and out of space air came, and out of this, oh how lovely it is sounding. Before you get cozy in your chair, you are going to be ejected out of this chair. with the force of the Bhashya. The Bhashya says, Etasmad eva. Yes, Etasmad eva, from this alone. And what is this? He says, Nama Rupa. Purusha, this is the Purusha. Who is this Purusha? Lest you forgot, Nama Rupa Bija Upadhi Lakshitat, which is the Bija. So we have a series of monsters. The whole Jagat is Frankenstein, correct? Yeah, this is the sci-fi negative fantasy come to life. That what we create becomes our own downfall, our own hubris. We don't have to worry about that at all in relation to the Jagat and the Purusha. Why? Because what has come, and Adi Shankara doesn't mince words. He says, Anritam, false. And actually he means mithya. But he says, these non-existent things have come from the Purusha. O ye Jiva, open up your eyes, wake up. Listen, this is the coffee you have been wanting. This is what is to wake up to. That this whole thing that you're taking so seriously, starting with the subtle, oh so subtle 5 elements, don't really exist. Means what? That's why I gave that whole idea of the connection of how the subtle is defined in relation to you. If you did not call it subtle, would it exist? No. It would, but it's dependent upon you objectifying it. If you were not there, if the knower was not there, really speaking, they don't have a leg to stand on. This is very important to see, because even if you don't understand that this knower is Atma, out of which all the elements have come. So in 2 ways the elements are non-existent. So in the technical Vedantic definition, they are not self-existent, therefore they are as good as non-existent. Self-existent means the only thing that is self-existent is you, Swatas Siddha. So therefore they are non-existent, correct? And then what? The second meaning is they are what? They are not really in relation to you, they are not able to declare themselves just like you can declare yourself. So in relation to you also, they have a inferior dependent existence. So first thing, they are not self-existent. Second thing, they have a dependent reality. Both in terms of the Purusha, they are dependent on the Purusha. And who is this Purusha? You. So they are dependent on you for their existence. But how is space dependent upon me? I keep complaining I don't have enough space. How is space dependent upon me when I have so much space in my head and I am not able to understand this very thing? Just look at it like this. Space needs you to objectify it. But I can do so only with one sense organ. That's enough. That's enough. That itself shows that you are unlike anything in this universe. All this space, time included, and the 5 elements, subtle, gross, whatever level, they don't form the same, they don't occupy the same reality, the same ontological status as you. They are not other than you, but they are unlike you. Yeah, this is something which is, that's why it's a big bang bhashya. And without any ado, he immediately quotes the Chandogya Upanishad, the Chandogya Shruti, which says, where the teaching takes the form of Uddalaka teaching his famous son. Who is that? Shvetu, Shvetaketu, Shvetu for short. And Shvetu is being told, to get down from his high hobby horse of pride in his Anuchanam. What is Anuchanam? Anuchanam is the repetition and grasping power. Yeah. Ava Anujanam, protect my Anujanam. Some Shanti mantras have that. And then, so he is now Anujana Mani. Mani means proud. So having pride with respect to his Medha Shakti, his grasping power, and Anujanam is repetition. Repetition of the mantras. Once he is told, he is able to just repeat along with the swaras. So he is now Anujana Mani. He is very proud that he is able to repeat. And then the father says, Vacharambhanam vikaro namadheyam. This sentence which is quoted. Vacharambhanam, vak alambanam. That everything that you are so proud of is just words. Everything is just words. Namadheyam. Swarthe dheya pratyaya. Dheya means it is just this suffix dheya means itself. It is just name itself. It is just form itself. It's nothing other than name and form. So what you are getting so proud of is non-existent. You are the one that is existent and self-existent and total and complete. You don't need these things to be proud of. You yourself are already worthy of being proud that you are the only self-existent being in the whole universe. I mean, what can top that? A few more degrees, what's the use? A few more degrees will make you a little more acceptable by few more degrees. That's all. That's all. That's why it's called degree, because it raises the degree of acceptability in your own eyes. But what rises falls, because then you meet somebody else who has a few more degrees, pun intended, and then you have to rise up to that degree. And so therefore none of this degree pedigree business is going to help you to shore up that self acceptability that you are striving for, O Shvetu, because all that you are running after and all that you are proud of is just Nama alone. It's just name. It's just words. Words, words, words. Hamlet said this. Hamlet was mad. Yeah, undoubtedly. And the king was worried about him. And so he sent this minister, Polonius. Go check up what he is doing and ask him to talk, find out, what this mental illness is. So Hamlet was reading a book. And Polonius says, Sir, what are you reading? Words, 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 he says. Then Polonius takes down some notes and goes to his father, the king. Says, he's mad, all right. But there is a method to his madness. Because it's not untrue that he is reading words. So likewise, there is a method to the Jagat's madness, and that method is revealed right here, right now to Shvetaketu by Uddalaka. And what is that method? That method is that everything is methodically non-existent. Other than you, nothing exists. But how? I'm hungry now, I'm feeling a little peckish. How do you say that nothing exists other than me? Yes, nothing exists. When you say I'm feeling hungry, what are you feeling? You're not feeling really hungry. You are observing the hunger which is unable to express itself other than you. This is what the whole idea is of the self-existent, self-revealing, self-evident self unfolded by this mantra. This is what the whole thing is. And Adi Shankara just goes straight to the jugular of the jiva and says that we have to just, put a full stop on this whole Jagat being a reality. We have to close the curtains down, and see that the Jagat is as good as gone when you close the curtains of your eyes down. You close your eyes, what Jagat? Where? So the Jagat does not exist. That is not correct to say. What he is saying is the Jagat does not exist apart from the knower, and that knower is infinite consciousness, limitless consciousness, that is you. So the Jagat cannot exist outside of you. The Jagat is dependent upon you to be cognized, and the Jagat is also dependent on you as the Purusha, because it has come from that sentient consciousness alone. So anything that has existence in the Jagat is borrowing that existence from you, who is at once self-existence. This is what is to understand. So he quotes this Shruti, Vacharambhanam vikaro namadheyam, that everything is as good as non-existent because it is not self-existent. This is not about getting into a place of dissociation. This is what children do sometimes. Like they don't want to, face trauma, and so they go to their happy place where everything is wonderful and fine. That's not the point. It's not about dissociation. It's about seeing that I am separate from everything, but nothing is separate from me. So everything that depends on me cannot rebel against me, just like the shadow cannot stage a rebellion and handcuff me. First cuff me in the face and then handcuff me, and then put me in a dungeon, and the shadow takes on my identity, it takes on my credit cards, it takes on the checkbook, and then it sallies forth into the world to conduct business. Can that ever happen? No. Why? Because the shadow is dependent on me. If I am not there, there is no shadow. So likewise, the whole world is shady because it is dependent upon the Purusha in the same way that the shadow is dependent upon me. More we'll see after a little break. You can just take some time to assimilate that. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Harihi Om.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Could you just ask I don't know if they can hear me, the live stream people, what's going on?
Are you able to see me and hear me on the live stream? Not here, on the live stream. And some people, of course, the same people are logged on there also, I think.
Chelsea, Santi.
Oh, on live stream they are not able to hear. Ask them to come to this class.
I did, I sent them and I said,
Yeah.
and I'll change
Yeah,
that.
they cannot see or hear.
They can't see?
Apparently. Yeah, some people are in both places, so they are giving us the input
Okay.
that they can neither see nor hear.
Okay, I'm just going to, there's going to be an echo from
Yeah.
Christmas came early.